All right, it's Wednesday, November 15th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with kind of a two-up red bar. So in other words, we took out the previous day's high, but we didn't really follow through much, and we closed a little bit to the red side. We still stayed above the midpoint of the prior day. So in essence, it was just a pause day that was certainly expected if you were looking at the exhaustion risk that's in play on the upside after the big gap up yesterday. And today, we started kind of at the high of the previous day and then didn't really follow through all that much, and yet didn't really give a reversal day to the downside, although we do have a 2 down signal tomorrow. If that develops, we will see if that then targets into this gap. I'll certainly give it a play. So the interesting thing as this week goes on here is that if we get a 2 down day, we can take that and see if we get some kind of a pretty big pullback. And if it doesn't reach our targets, which is this low and into the gap, and then starts a 2 up, that's a powerful buy signal, and that's more in line with the weekly chart that still has targets above. So that's going to be things to monitor for going forward. In terms of today, right out of the gates, if you want to look technically, there was kind of like we were gapping up from that day yesterday. So the high of the day yesterday was right here, and right out of the gates, the pre-market high was between the blue lines. That was even higher, but even that first bar was above yesterday's high. So it kind of fulfilled, taking out the green bar high right on the opening bar. But you were still way above the midpoint of the prior day. So, you're not really looking to go short here. And if anything, opening price action on kind of a red to green move on this third bar turning green, you kind of expected, as you followed through on bar number 4, to take out the first bar high and then see if you would work up to the intraday high. But if you look at the intraday high, what's interesting here, this was a very big sell after some economic news. So there was a big resistance selling tail up here, and it's not surprising that after you took out that first bar high, you were trying to work up to that target, but you really just kind of held the midway point there before reversing to the downside. So in essence, it was a type of thing where the opening trade, if you were even going to take anything on the SPY, was to try a buy here, maybe see if you headed up, but just know you're at exhaustion risk and all kinds of resistance, and you had an opportunity either to take a very small gain within 45 minutes up here or break even at the worst once it came down. What I actually did here, I was look at the QQQs. They were a lot weaker than the SPY, and I discussed a whole video how I was anticipating. You look at, if you see this first bar, second bar went lower. By then, we weren't even heading up there above the first bar high, and I was anticipating it coming down, and it did come down, took out the the intraday low and the pre-market lows here before eventually kind of pausing. So, I bought puts here expecting this kind of move, and as I discussed yesterday, I think on the recap video, once you're in exhaustion risk up here, I'm more interested in liquidity, taking out liquidity to the downside, which it did here, taking out the low before kind of looking for buys. And then it would depend on when that happens in the day. If it's early in the session and takes out liquidity, you can look for targets above. This one happened later on. But you can see that's kind of what it's doing now in this pause scenario. It's taking out liquidity to the downside before maybe wanting to resume up, as opposed to continuing momentum to the upside, either right out of the gates or a kind of a second push up on the day. So, it was not really a day. In my opinion, there wasn't much opportunity here. There was no actionable signal. This initial price action to kind of move up to take out the first bar high. Once it came back into that first bar range, you kind of saw that you weren't getting the move up there that you would get on a day like this. And then even the day before that, if I recall, this red to green move here actually had a target of the previous day's high, and that's why it was a good morning trade. Today, it was more, we already took out yesterday's high, so the target was just the first bar high, and again, it just kind of went up there for 45 minutes and then eventually came back through it. So in this environment, I think the market does want to come down, take out liquidity to the downside. That's why it was a good short trade on the QQQs. The SPY eventually kind of worked towards its intraday lows, and that's where it kind of paused. So going with that, we'll just see where things unfold for tomorrow. There there is an actionable signal. It's against big picture continuity, but it is an actionable signal maybe to broaden out a little lower. The best trades are still going to be moves lower that fail and then start up. So, this is an example of it on a very small time frame, taking out the lows of the day, failing to get momentum downside, and then having a good, pop to the upside. But we'll look for that more on the daily chart or, some kind of intraday chart at the right moments to maybe have a good trade to take out some intraday highs type of thing. So we're still in a pause mode, in here at the moment. It is possible, that we get a 2-up day tomorrow and start above the midpoint of this day and have some momentum to the upside. So we'll look for that. It's all going to depend, as always, where the pre-market range is, how price opens, and everything else. But today, pretty, not a surprising pause day, and we'll just see how things go for the rest of the week.